Welcome to Spokane Talks News Matters. We cover the hyperlocal issues that affect you most directly. In this case, we're looking back at the Spokane Sustainability Action Plan adopted in October of 2021 by the Spokane City Council. Before that, there was a draft that came out in May of 2021, and there was a lot of debate over one of the goals that was set. The draft set a goal of eliminating gas hookups from all new commercial and multifamily residential buildings by 2023, from all new construction by 2028. A lot of debate over that spring and summer, and in May of 2021, Breean was quoted in the Spokesman Review as saying, that's definitely out, and quote, "I don't think anyone on City Council is going to be proposing that we eliminate natural gas hookups by 2023. Later on in July, he was quoted again. The quote from the newspaper is, "City Council has no plans to restrict natural gas. It's not a real issue currently. It's really just an issue to get people riled up," said Spokane City Council President Breean. That was during an active City Council primary race season, so getting people riled up was a concern. There was an initiative that would have blocked the City Council from taking a position to eliminate natural gas hookups, and then that initiative drive was withdrawn. And in October, when the Sustainability Action Plan was adopted, the Spokesman Review, this is not a quote, this is from the article though. The article on the October 25, 2021 said that the natural gas connection ban was eliminated from the final version of the plan, and indeed it was. So that's not part of the Spokane Sustainability Action Plan. What was brought to my attention by one of Spokane Talks listeners was to take a look at the State Building Code Council agenda for April 22nd, and the items on the agenda include a Washington State Energy Code adoption. That adoption would take effect July 1, 2023. And there's a long list of written testimony that was submitted by a variety of people, both pro and con, various parts of the code. Again, the natural gas elimination as a heat source was one of the hottest topics discussed, and there were a lot of letters submitted. One of the letters was from a whole batch of city and county elected officials, and City Council President Breean signed on to this letter. The letter says, "We, the undersigned local elected officials, write to strongly urge the SBCC to adopt a commercial energy code that aligns with the climate and sustainability goals that we have established at the local and state level." And then it puts in bold in this letter, "Specifically, we support a statewide commercial energy code for new construction that requires electric heat pump technology for water and space heating and eliminates fossil fuels from these appliances, which account for the majority of emissions in our building sector." And that's what the letter says. I asked Breean why he signed on to the letter when that was taken out of Spokane's Sustainability Action Plan. He has a very good explanation. I'm really glad I was able to talk with him about it. But again, I did check after my conversation with Breean this morning, and this elimination of natural gas hookups in commercial and multifamily residential will go into effect July 1, 2023, only 2 years from now, if the State Building Code Council adopts this as one of the amendments to the Washington State Energy Code, and that meeting is on April 22nd. But let me take you now to that interview with Breean, and you can hear in his own words what he was thinking, and then you can decide what needs to happen next. Well, good morning, Breean.
Yeah.
Glad to have you here. I do have a question. As I've been looking at the upcoming State Building Code Council meeting on April 22nd, they will be discussing adopting the 2021 Washington State Energy Code. And there was a lot of testimony collected, a lot of written testimony collected. And it came to my attention that there is a letter there signed by, it's like 3 pages worth of city and council officials, which you signed on to. And I'm curious, I'd like you to be able to answer in your own words why you signed on to that letter, because it's very explicitly says that this group supports total electrification of commercial buildings and banning fossil fuels. which would be the natural gas debate. And that was such a big debate over the adoption of the Spokane Sustainability Action Plan, and it was taken out of the SAP. So how did you come to sign that letter?
Yeah, so that letter, and my interpretation of that letter was that over the next 25 years, that has to happen. So when we had the debate locally, the question was, if I remember, someone had proposed that we, well, no one had proposed that we ban natural gas, but somebody had proposed that we, for new commercial construction within just a few years, ban natural gas. And I was opposed to that from the beginning. As I read the letter and read the letter when I signed it, is in the next 25 years, we have to decarbonize our buildings from fossil fuels. And when that happens, how that happens, the plan that I signed off on locally was we start with incentives and education and give people choices. And really the only two mandates, specific mandates that I've backed so far are one, when there's a new commercial building, that you install the conduit for solar, because it's way cheaper to install it while you're building it as opposed to retrofitting it. And then secondly, making sure that you have electrical hookups for all appliances, but not precluding fossilized gas hookups. I've talked a lot with our unions that do this work and our utilities, and they believe that there's a good possibility that over the years we'll have renewable biogas, like the gas that we're currently burning off at the sewage treatment plant, and also green hydrogen gas. And so the idea is to keep the gas infrastructure in place while we convert to renewable. But by, I think, 2050, essentially, if Washington law stays the same, buildings are going to have to be out of the fossilized gas business in order to comply. So that's how I view it, is to have that discussion at the building council and figure out what's the timeline, how do we do it, and ideally, how do you do it mostly with education incentives to use the market. So
okay,
that was my thinking.
Okay, there's a lot of interesting written testimony. One of them is from a local mechanical engineer, a woman that I've actually worked with on projects in the past, so I know her capabilities, and she's been part of the ASHRAE 90.1 standard. That's the mechanical standard. One of several of the things she points out in her letter are some of the physical challenges of actually decarbonizing and creating less resilience, especially in our major commercial buildings and in things like hospitals, schools, places where we expect to use as refuge. So there's certainly a lot that has to happen in the next, certainly in the next decade, if not sooner, for that to even be possible.
Well, here, just so you know, this is there's a lot of people that it's all or nothing, and it's either next month or never. I mean, that's how a lot of the debate is out there in the public, and that's just not the thing. So for instance, I'm not opposed to having natural gas backup generators for hospitals and schools in an emergency. I mean, that last bit of fossilized gas is not going to make the difference in whether we survive climate change or not. The important thing is to move forward and to really capture the market spillover effects. When I took economics long ago at Whitworth, one of the big issues was, are there spillover costs that are distorting the market? And so if you have a factory and you're just pumping your waste into the Spokane River and someone else is having to pay for it to clean up so you can have a cheaper product, that's not true market-based economy. And so what's going on right now is we're recognizing that with climate change, we're paying billions and billions of dollars every year for weather-related kind of things. And so we're going to have to pay for it. So we have to figure out what the actual cost might be, even though fossil fuels might be subsidized right now and not having to pay for that. I'm also a big fan of just looking at our thirst for energy. When it comes to the building sector, we're really going to have to focus on more insulation and energy efficiency, just to reduce the overall energy. If we continue with the energy demand without lowering that, we're just not going to have enough energy regardless, fossil fuel or renewable. And I really like the example of the Catalyst building, which is last time you and I saw each other. You know, that building is, you know, energy neutral. It doesn't use any. And they use, you know, innovative materials and design standards so that it just doesn't lose much energy. And according to Avista, who helped build it, it didn't cost a whole lot more money to do it if you use those techniques. And so those are the sort of things I'm hoping the Building Codes Council is going to be looking at, is say, yep, we have to make this change, but how do we do it in a way that's not disruptive next week and next month to people, in ways that really help people economically overall by lowering the overall cost. You know, McKinstry Engineering, who helped build that Catalyst building, when I was talking with them, they pointed out to me that only 17% of the cost of a building is the construction over the lifetime of the building.
Right.
And so you really want to invest money in things, even though it will increase the cost of the construction, which is hard for people to swallow. But look at all the owners of the building over the next 50 years and 100 years and save money and energy. And so those are the sort of things that I leave it to the Building Council to do. My intent in supporting the letter, along with lots of other city officials, is Building Council, start taking this into effect, come up with a plan. You're the experts, Building Council. I'm not an expert on it, but go to take that into account and go down that direction to comply. What the specifics are, I'm sure the experts will figure out what the timeline is and how far to go and how fast.
Okay. I'll leave you with one anecdote for me then. I came into architecture, graduated from school right at the time that hit at the time of the first energy crisis, 1974. Everything's shutting down, and we have to start insulating buildings because insulation was just a token thing at the time.
Yep.
Truly token. I mean, we're talking an inch maybe.
Yeah.
And so I watched this go from here we're going to super insulate everything because we have to save the energy. And then it was, oh, good heavens, now we've created toxic buildings because we have bad air. So now we have to have, and we got mold, we have to have all this air coming in. Well, now we have to save all that, you know, heat exchange that air. Well, now we need to get more fresh air. So, but now we need more daylight. So instead of closing down all those windows in schools, we need to start putting windows back in. Now we need to have electronics that control the windows. So the windows open for fresh air and daylight. I'm thinking I'm not sure we're making progress, but we sure are adding a whole lot of complexity to buildings.
Yeah. Well, no, and especially my grandmother lived to be 107, and she took great joy in critiquing her children of all the diets that they wanted to go, all the different things, you know, you need meat, you don't need meat, you know, and she, you know, she says, well, I've lived over 100 years old, so you should just do what I'm doing and don't, you know, bother yourself. But that said, there really are buildings now that are amazing, that do have the daylight, they do have enough fresh air, they do save energy, and but it does take planning and thinking, systems thinking. And I mean, I think it's pretty exciting, the technology. My daughter is just about to graduate from college with a material science degree and going to work for a large utility, and she's on their future of energy team. And so she's working on batteries, and she's working with state regulators for investments in solar and wind that work for ratepayers. You know, I mean, so with some thinking, we can be smarter. I don't think we're going to just use technology to get out of the path that we're on, but it's certainly a big piece of it. But as you're finding out in, you know, your research for this story and that people are so polarized on the all or nothing, I really think that gets in the way. And I'm like, okay, let's, you know, I helped negotiate with Avista this 100% clean electricity by 2030 in Spokane. And what it came down to, the reason there wasn't an agreement before was they were like, that last 1 or 2%, Breean, that's going to be the super expensive thing. So can you give us some wiggle room on that? And I'm like, yeah, if you're at 95% clean energy by 20, we're good. You know, that's, I mean, I hope you're at 100%, but no, we're fine. But if you use the cost of that last 1% or 5% to say we're not going to do anything, then we're going to really be in trouble. So I just hope people will keep talking to each other and come up with pragmatic solutions. And yes, we have to update the electric grid. I mean, we have to do that anyway, even if we weren't doing anything renewable. So we just have to move forward together and try to see each other as friends and community members, I think.
Yeah. The other piece of the high performance buildings, Dr. Julia Day at WSU for her dissertation did a study on why high performance buildings don't perform, because they generally don't live up to the projections. The models are tad optimistic. The reason comes down to people. They've actually, and she's been working with companies on, people move into a building and they don't know how it works.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, unless you have a fixed population of building, that's always going to be true. You can over engineer something to where it doesn't work for the people. So it's very complicated to make this work out. And I know the Bullitt Foundation building in Seattle is a famous net zero building, but one of the ways they hit net zero was by limiting who they would rent to. They would not rent to anybody that was going to use more energy than would fit into their model. So it's complicated.
No, it will be, and life is complicated, but to me, we have to lean into that complication and complexity in order not to have the kind of disasters that we're already having. I mean, it's just been the last years that we've had all these wildfires and, towns destroyed. And I mean, we're going to need to do something. I think we're past the point of arguing too robustly about whether or not we need to do something. It is just the question of what do we do first and how fast and what can we do? And is there a place for everybody at the table in the conversation?
There always needs to be a place at the table for everyone. And Breean, I thank you for making time to talk to me this morning so I can get this note out today. Yeah.
Well, good luck. All right.
Nice talking to you. Thanks, Breean.
Right.
Bye. I really appreciate Breean Biggs taking the time to sit down with me on this morning to answer the question about how this letter come about that was submitted as part of the testimony supporting the Washington State Energy Code adoption. It's up to you as citizens to decide what you want to do about this. You have information. The next step in the process is the State Building Code Council will meet on Zoom on April 22nd to decide on adopting any or all of the many amendments that will create the 2021 Washington State Energy Code, which goes into effect July 1, 2023, and which, if adopted as proposed, will eliminate natural gas hookups from new commercial and multifamily residential with some very narrow exceptions. It's all up to you.